With permaculture, you're stacking functions, so you're not always you're using your space wisely. And I can put 40 or 50 different types of food in a 20-foot by 20-foot space.
Thank you for joining us, Travis. One of my favorite things about having a military brother on video is I know you guys are always going to show up and you go be on time. So I really appreciate that. And you were in the Marine Corps, is that correct?
Yep. Yeah, Desert Storm vet.
How long did you serve?
4 years. That's enough for the Marine Corps, man.
That's right. That's more than enough. That's half a lifetime. You've got a fantastic social media presence, but what platform are you using that delivers the most leads to your company?
I'd have to say YouTube right now. And there's another one called nextdoor.com. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yes.
But I've actually got a couple jobs off of that, which is, and that's kind of a hard site to post on because it's neighborhood type stuff. And people automatically, they try to get you kicked off all the time.
So you made a really unusual transition, I would say. I was excited to get you on because I've been a big fan of permaculture. Probably, I was trying to remember when I first even heard the word, maybe as far back as 2008. I think it might have been Mollison that I ran into.
Good Wilson, yeah.
An awesome, great teacher on information. And then later, Jeff Lawton, who was a big YouTube star. I assume he probably still is. And here in Florida, and you might be interested to hear this, that I got to spend an entire day with Green Dean, who is he's our resident expert in the entire state of Florida. If you want to know about eating wild foods that grow here that are native, he's the guy. And I paid him for a class, and we all went to a local park. And I thought, what are we going to do? And he says, I'm going to show you what you can eat in the park. And I looked around, and it was just, it was weeds. And I thought, what's this guy going to do? 20 minutes into it, he's got piles and piles of food. He was pulling on vines and looked like potatoes were coming out of the ground. I mean, this guy is really unbelievable. So there's just so much to know.
Yeah, Bill Mollison and Jeff Lawton both had, Bill Mollison's permaculture design course. Jeff Lawton's in it, so he's teaching a lot of the courses during that. There's like 44 videos. They're about an hour and a half each long. So when I was at the gym riding a bike I ride a bike for an hour, I get through an episode on there, while I was learning permaculture and stuff like that. So
when did you first hear permaculture? And of course, if you want to define it for us, if not, we'll put it up on screen.
Back in probably not until like 2018, because I was focused on bringing something completely different to market, but it still had to do with permaculture, but it just wasn't permaculture. It was kind of like a greenhouse on steroids, It was off-grid greenhouse anybody could have in their backyard, but it had solar panels on it to power it. It had biodigester for making cooking oil or cooking fuel, thermal dehydrator for dehydrating food, water catchment with 250-gallon tanks attached to it for not only potable water, aquaponics. So one of them had tilapia, and then that was, putting all the nutrients into the food inside of the greenhouse. And there's hydroponics in there, and then there was a chicken tractor attached to the back. And then this is the one that is the kicker for me, a solar-powered bug zapper right above the chicken coop. So it drops the bugs right into the chicken coop. It zaps them right into the chicken coop. And chickens love bugs. So it was just, and I saw the drawing of this, the prototype drawing. I'm like, I've always been interested in growing food, but that did it. It hooked me forever. And then there's actually my friend he's down in Orlando. And so I actually flew down there, and I went in the prototype and saw it. And then we were trying to bring it to market for a few years, and this was too expensive to make. And so that never got off the ground. And then Then we got into transforming lawns, and that's when I started getting into permaculture. The transition from web developer to permaculture was, you know,
Well, the system that you took a look at in Orlando sounds fantastic, and all those systems familiar with, and to combine them all in one,
yeah.
that's fantastic. What was the square feet of some of the prototypes that you looked at?
Oh man, it's probably only I'd say 100 square feet, maybe a little more. It
That's
wasn't huge. It was enough for your every everyday suburban backyard.
Now, if food prices go up even more than they are, which I personally think they will, I've got a video where I talk about the economy, what's going on with it, and so on and so forth. I really try not to be a doom and gloom guy, Travis, but I do think that food prices are going higher. Now, if they double, you guys might be back in business with that idea, because people are already looking around for alternatives. Look at the recent interest in backyard chicken farms when eggs went through the roof, which now they're going through the roof again. For those that have never heard of permaculture before, what's an easy way you can explain it to a homeowner that maybe saw a short little YouTube video and you're having that first conversation with a potential prospect on the phone? How do you
Let's
do it?
see, it's permanent culture, and it's a design science, and you're actually working with nature and not against nature, and you're basically combining fruit trees or berry bushes and, all these different types of layers, just like you would see out in nature, except it's in your own backyard, and it's low maintenance and self-sustainable and regenerative. And you plant a tree one time, and instead of a normal garden where you plant every spring and you have to pay a lot of attention to that. It's a lot of work versus a permaculture. Food forest or edible landscape is pretty much, once it starts maturing, it's just like nature, is hands off, and really, really low maintenance. And for a lot of people, that is what sells it to them, because I don't know how to do it. How am I going to grow a bunch of, apples and oranges and all this stuff in my backyard? I have a green thumb.
Who's the perfect client for you? Somebody with a lot of yard, a little bit of yard? Where can you make the most impact?
It varies. I mean, you get someone that has a tiny backyard, and with permaculture, you're stacking functions, so you're not always you're using your space wisely. And I can put 40 or 50 different types of food in a 20-foot by 20-foot space.
Whether you have a business or want to start one, you need ideas. Pick up our book, Scintilla, the ultimate guide to generating business ideas, products, and services. Available on Amazon in Kindle, paperback, hardcover, and now as an audiobook. After buying the book, go to www.freetimemastermind.com, click Other, and type Book Bonus Material to get access to the book's vault of extra information, as well as access to a private Facebook group for book owners. Find the link to the book in the description.
I live in a townhouse, so I don't have a big property, right? A big yard. I have a 10 by 10 patio, and I had 50 different types of food growing on my patio, because I built shelves, and I was using the cloth bags, and just, I had everything growing. And it was just, fruit trees, berry bushes, and I had lemon trees, lime trees. I'm in Minnesota, but I bring those in the winter, so inside my townhouse here, I have lemons, limes, pomegranate, banana trees, and
in Minnesota. That's impressive just in and of itself. To have citrus trees in Minnesota is impressive. That's fantastic. And the cloth bags, I've seen people use that in aquaculture as well. I've seen houses that behind the house, they have these cloth bags that you can put soil, you can put rocks, you can put cocoa medium in that you can grow things. And they're what would be shower water, not necessarily sewage water, but
gray water.
Gray water, that's right, gray water, which doesn't have, doesn't have the stuff that doesn't come out of the toilet. Let's just put it that way without getting too technical. So all the other water that comes out of the house runs downhill out of a pipe and then is filtered through a series of these plants that are in these bags, and then comes out clean on the other end and can potentially be a tilapia pond. And you made a great connection earlier between the waste that the tilapia fish gives out is very high in nitrogen, which plants love that. So putting plants and fish together is a natural marriage if you have the space.
And a friend of mine, he's down in Central Florida there, St. Cloud, Florida, matter of fact. And he's got a 52-acre property, 100% off grid, put a 6-acre pond in, put like 200 fruit trees around the outer perimeter of this pond, and then put a solar pump in the pond and then put the PVC piping in the ground all the way around. So, and then put like 15,000 fingerlings of 5 different species of fish in the pond. And now the water is pumped out of the pond into the pipes all the way around the outer edges of this pond, and it slopes back down into the pond. So it's basically like a closed loop natural hydroponic system, and you call it fertigation, And
What is that word again?
fertigation,
Now, see, I've never even heard of
irrigation
that.
and fertilizer. So you're fertigation.
I'm learning
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff here. Now that's amazing. Now I'm in Kenansville, which your buddy knows where that is, because St. Cloud is where we go for the grocery store. So I have to drive 40 minutes to his town, to St. Cloud,
Okay.
to get my groceries. So I'm in that area. I'm in that corridor. So south
If
you got
you
Orlando,
yeah,
St. Cloud, and then us further
if you ever
south.
get a chance, it's called Galt's Landing. 4 years ago, the first time I was down there, absolutely nothing. We planted a 600 square foot food forest on that property just to see how things would grow off by itself on the edge of the wooded area, and the thing just took off. And I think there's 50 different types of food growing, and all types of citrus and pineapple and all these other types that grow down in Florida, and it just did amazing. Well, now on the property, there's 250 different types of food growing, and all this sandy soil it's like the Garden of Eden down there. And it's life changing when you go on the property. You walk in there, and banana trees are 20 feet high, all over the place. There's paths going through, and now there's some cows for grazing, chickens, beehives on both sides of the property, and there's some luxury homes, 100% off grid.
And
And
you've got the pollinators right there
yeah,
too. On top of that, just spraying.
everything's designed, perfectly. It's just a permaculture paradise. And then there's some shipping container homes that are used as Airbnbs, so people can spend a night food forest. And when you
That's
go in, there's a bowl full of eggs from chickens. And then there is all the fruit and vegetables from around the property, but you can actually walk around and go get all the food you want on the property. It's absolutely amazing. Beautiful property.
that's incredible. We need to get him on the show next. What's his name?
Jim Gale.
That's fantastic because he is, in the terms of where I'm at, he is a neighbor.
Yeah.
I'm an avid fisherman. I know he won't let me fish on his property.
Matter of fact, he's got a 450-acre private lake
Oh, quit
on
it.
that property with the only dock on it, right? Nobody
Oh,
else. There's one other house on the lake down a ways, but he's the only one, and whoever's on the property at the time fishes there. He'll go out for about a half an hour in a boat, and he'll get a bunch of crappie and bass and everything and fillet them right in the middle of the water, throw everything, all the waste back in go right back to nature.
That's
And then he
right.
brings the fillets in. His wife's from Costa Rica, so she cooks up dinner, and yeah, so he's 10-pound bass all the time. And he's actually been making videos as he's just talking and pulls out a 10-pound or 12-pound bass on accident, right? But it's just full. And then, your little gators and stuff too. But just beautiful, beautiful property.
I did say to a friend of mine, we were talking about people who stock up on food, which I encourage people to do responsibly, of course. But I said, people can grab your your feet for your freezer off your back porch with your deer meat and run off with that. But no, but nobody's going to come in the middle of the night and be able to grab all your fish out of the pond. It's very difficult to take
And he
somebody's
also
fish.
catches fish from the lake and puts some of the bigger fish in the pond too. So,
Right.
it's plus all the different fingerlings he put in there a couple years ago. So the thing's just thriving. And another thing he did is I think it's water hyacinth. It just spreads like crazy over the surface of the water. And a lot of people say, oh, that's invasive, whatever. But he did it, and the water, he's got pumps in the water, so the water's clean all the time. So it's not sitting there, stagnant. But once that stuff gets full grown, instead of it taking over his pond, he dragged it out and dried it, and it's chicken feed.
Earlier, you said food forest. And when somebody gives you a call and they say, I heard about this food forest thing, what can you tell me about what is that and how can I have one in my backyard? How do you explain that to people?
Not in the way I explained permaculture in a way, but and I just kind of explained it to when you're driving down the street or down the highway and you look off to the side and you see this wooded area. You have all your different trees of all different sizes, your canopy layer, all the way down to your ground covers and everything in between. And nobody's taking care of that but nature. And like they're all working together, they all communicate together, and they all benefit each other to help each other survive, And I say that's exactly how we design your backyard. I take an apple tree or whatever fruit tree, and now I'm planting all types of supporting plants that help each other. So I might have the apple tree, but I also have 12 different plants and berry bushes and shrubs and herbs and, pest deterrents, pollinators, bio or dynamic accumulators, which you're familiar with comfrey?
Yes, yes. My mother loved it. She would make poultices from it and salves. Like her yard was full of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and you got a fruit tree has a short root system, so they don't go very deep. Well, comfrey, so dynamic accumulator has a long taproot that's 8-10 feet long, so it gets down into the soil and mines the nutrients all these other plants can't get to. So it takes up the nutrients in its trunk, its leaves, its stems, and its flowers. So, and not only attracts big bumblebees and stuff like that, it takes up all these nutrients, and when it grows, you chop it down and you use it as mulch, live mulch, and you add it to your soil, and it just, all those nutrients benefit everything growing on top,
Throw out the bag of the 10-10-10 and get some comfrey in there because
yeah, and then a couple months later, it's full grown again, and you can chop it down again, so it's a soil builder.
And also permaculture, you guys put a heavy emphasis on, I guess they call it polyculture instead of monoculture. And here down in Florida, we lost two major species of plants because of over farming. First, this was a long time ago, long before I was born. The banana that my grandfather ate it from the grocery store. Well, I'm not sure if they had regular grocery stores then, but when they came in, they ate a species called the Gros Michel, which is supposed to be one of the tastiest bananas in the world. We now
Sure.
eat Cavendish, which tastes like a cardboard box. But the Gros Michel, they did monoculture here. They had too many rows of it in too small of an area. It developed a fungus, and now we can't even grow that species of banana anywhere in the United States. Anytime they try to put it in, the fungus comes back. So the reason why the fungus went through the roof anyway is because they had put too much of it together. What did we do with citrus? We did the same thing down here. We put too many of the same type of citrus trees, hundreds and hundreds of acres. That little silicid, that little bug started to spread the greening. And now I'll give you a stat from 5 years ago, because it's much worse now. But 5 years ago, the state of Florida had lost 770,000 acres of citrus trees to this greening phenomenon. And had they just done some citrus over here, maybe then some bananas, and, mixed it up a little bit. But think of, if you're a predator and you love a particular species of plant, and then you get confronted with 300 acres of your favorite type of food, you're that's what
You'd
they
be
did.
fat and happy forever, you
That's
know?
right. They created super predators here. So yeah, monoculture is not the way to go. But in a food forest, you might have, a tree, some plants, maybe pineapple. What's the
Mhm.
typical mix that you guys put in the ground up there in Minnesota? Is there ones that really tend to work well?
I try to vary it up a lot, but I use a lot of, you know, you get your apples, your peaches, your plums, and your pears, and then I usually add, comfrey is in every guild. That's my go-to, comfrey and ground cover wild strawberry, especially in apple tree guilds. Wild strawberry is a great ground cover, or clover, and then black-eyed Susan. And earlier we were talking about Cavendish bananas. I have like 13 dwarf Cavendish banana trees in my basement under grow lights right now. So they go outside in the summer on my patio, and then I bring them in the winter. So yeah, I have them. They're probably maybe about 3, almost 4 feet tall right now. So probably have to wait about another 4 more feet. They get about 8 to 10 feet tall, and I don't know if I ever get bananas on them, but they're just fun to have. And look,
Yeah.
they multiply like crazy, because they grow pups, and so I have one mother that has, and now I have 13 other banana trees growing from that one mother, and now all my other 13 have 2 or 3 pups growing on each of those. So they're hard to keep up with sometimes, because they grow so fast.
And it's conditioning and filtering your indoor air too, because of
Yeah.
that fantastic air exchange. Now, I don't know how hardcore um, the homeowners associations are up in Minnesota, but here in Florida, they're notoriously brutal. How do you deal
Depends
with
who's
that?
running them.
Because what's that? I'm sorry.
Depends which Karen is running them.
Yes, yes. Do you run into that with your clients where you have to make
Um,
sure?
So far, I have not, so far, because usually people that have a really heavy or overbearing HOA, they won't even attempt to put a food forest in there because they can't. So I haven't run into that, but I can't wait to run into them so I could change their mind.
Absolutely. And the information's out there. I wanted to pivot back to something that we talked about early on when you were talking when you spoke about the 100 square foot that self-contained all-in-one, which was really amazing. Many years ago, this would have been maybe 2005. I was reading about, and it's probably a subject you've run across too, is black soldier flies. Hope nobody's eating during this part of the episode because this will get a little bit odd. But black soldier flies they're all over the U.S. They're not like house flies. They look like a wasp actually, and a lot of people that have chickens are creating these waste piles, and there's various ways to attract these black soldier flies, which then produce these really big grubs that chickens love.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are getting into that. So for all of the fanatics that started the backyard egg farms a couple of years ago when prices went through the roof, some people took it to a whole other level, and they're taking their household scraps and
Yeah.
creating these grubs, because the grubs are even higher density nutrition food
Yes.
for the chickens than if you had just thrown the waste out in the yard itself. So they're making the nutrition more sophisticated that they're feeding to the chickens. And I think they said if you have a sufficient amount of those the grubs, really all you have to do to supplement the chicken's diet is a little bit of calcium for the sake of the eggs. But of course, I'm sure there are some plants that have plenty of calcium. I think spinach does as well.
Yeah. I have a friend here. He's about 25 minutes from me. He has, I think, 300 chickens. He's got they're all, it's a wide open land, and they just run around and the outside is fenced in, but they just do what they want. And he's starting to plant, it's turning into a food forest too. And what is it? The one, I think it's mulberry that chickens like, and like a lot of food forests, if they have chicken coops, we plant mulberries near it. because so they drop into the chicken wherever the chickens are and they eat them. So yeah, but he always tells me, he goes, if you need chicken shit, I have as much as you want.
That's a
So,
great. That's an excellent fertilizer.
and $4 a dozen of fresh eggs, so
You can't beat that.
I get 10 dozen at a time when I see them, and 40 bucks and I'm set for a while. I live by myself, so throw them in, and green and brown and all different types of different shapes and different colors of eggs, and you cannot beat the taste of those fresh eggs like that.
You can tell by the color how the yolk stands up in the skillet. It looks healthier.
And the
You-
color. The
yes.
colors like a deep, really deep orange, and I was just thinking the other day I had some regular eggs that I got at Walmart, just the white eggs, and the shell is so brittle. It's just crazy how brittle it is, and yeah, it just no comparison. No comparison.
It's a world of difference. Just like grass-fed beef versus,
Yes.
a good steak that's grass-fed is just that's, free range versus, something that's stuck in a building. They got cows riding on elevators now. It's not natural. I can't say how conceivably how they could make a good steak. Are you looking to take what you have in Minnesota right now and possibly franchising that or moving that out? What are your future plans for the
I'm
company?
glad you asked that because I'm actually within the next 2 weeks launching the Food Forest Design Network.
I
which
did not
is-
know that. I didn't prompt you, by the way. That's
No, and I'm actually working with another Marine out in Massachusetts, and he's into permaculture also. And I have through my business now in the past since 2020, I have built up a network of designers, from every grow zone. So I can grow anywhere or design anywhere. And this network we're gonna go after landscape companies to get them to transition over to being food forest or permaculture installers. So I'm gonna handle all of the sales and marketing for the network. Obviously you're gonna have to pay me to be part of the network. My designers don't, because designers are going to make money off of doing the design work. So, they make a percentage of that. But then once the design's finished, then I can hand off the install to someone in California or Arizona or Kentucky or wherever they're at, or even Canada. So that is basically where we're going with it. And I've seen it tried and it was working great, but it wasn't run right. So I kind of saw how it wasn't working, and all the shortcomings of that company are completely gone because I'm doing it the right way, So it's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. Just got to find an investor too. So, which makes things much easier when you have investment capital. So
That's right. You want to start off with a really strong foundation. Well, Travis, it sounds like we're going to have to do a follow-up. We'll follow up with you in 6 months to see what's going on with that, and then maybe a year to see, because we like to see every phase of that. When people in our group talk about business, obviously, first and foremost, the business has to be profitable. Second, it has to be scalable, and then it has to be duplicatable. Though, if somebody's pitching an idea and it doesn't, at the very minimum, meet those three criteria, the conversation doesn't go any further if they're looking for an investment capital. But it sounds like you've got something there that fulfills all three.
And I built this business from nothing, right? Up here in Minnesota, I didn't have any mentors to figure this out. My partner was down in Florida. So I started this up here and had to figure out I never did a permaculture installation before, right? So I had to figure out how to do an estimate and quotes and then source all the products. And so now I've built this business, and now I've built a course. So anybody who comes into this network, I can train them on how to run a permaculture installation business. So now they have all the training. It'll be video training, and then I have all these designers that are my mentors, that have been doing permaculture design for 15, 20 years. They're going to help me teach all these installers too, and with different things that go along with installing a food forest. Because sometimes you got a water management problems, so you got to figure out water management. And a guy my designer up in Michigan, he's an engineer also, so he's amazing with water management. So whenever I have an issue with water, I'm on a Zoom call with him or making video, and then he tells me, "Oh, here's what you got to do. Put a swale in here, or a rod pond, or garden, rain gardens, and and swales and stuff to direct all the water around." And just amazing, all the different designers I've met and their different skill sets. And I don't know if ever heard of Sepp Holzer. He's like Bill Mollison. He's one of the fathers of permaculture.
That's right, Holger culture. He was the one.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm probably saying it.
In the Alps, he was growing food in the Alps. And my friend Chad Johnson, he's in Duluth, Minnesota, or Spirit Mountain. He has 80 acres of off grid up there for the past 12 years. He lived with Sepp Holzer and learned from him before he died. So him and I drove down to Austin, Texas to install a food forest in the celebrities' property, a ranch down there, 17 and a half hour drive. And I learned more about permaculture in 17 and a half hours, just story after story from him. And when he lived with Sepp, it was just amazing, so all these mentors I have now too. And when I get large projects, I bring them in to help me design the large stuff. So I have a lot of confidence that my network is going to do great. It's going to be awesome. Well, I have the training, so there's not going to be any lack of material or lack of education for anybody.
And Travis, we talk about that on here frequently. And on a phone call earlier today, I was saying to someone that I'd almost rather have a mediocre idea and a really big network than a great idea and I don't know anybody. And there's a lot of people in that situation. It sounds like the strength of your network almost is going to guarantee that success, because you've got really captains of the industry around you, which is fantastic. But you've also got a great social media presence. And when I was doing the research, I thought, wow, this guy's everywhere, and you've got a lot of engagement out there. What are the 2 or 3 best ways that people can connect with you to find out more, to connect with you about possibly doing a food forest lawn at their house, or in anticipation of the second phase of your project?
Well, they can find me at foodforestdesignminnesota.com or Food Forest Design Minnesota on YouTube. I have about 380 videos now on YouTube, and I'm making them all the time, and I video everything, and getting a drone this spring. So now I'm going to have a drone above me, helping me film, and that's going to just bring it to a whole nother level. And then, I have my Instagram, which is Food Forest Design Minnesota, and Facebook too, and Facebook. So you can find me on all of those.
And when you say Minnesota, that's just MN, correct? They don't need to type.
You can do MN or Minnesota.
Oh, you've got them both.
I took care of that, so you can't mess it up, right? Fantastic. They all go to the same place. Yeah, and then my network is going to be foodforestdesignnetwork.com, and that will be live here in a couple of weeks. And as we start pre-launching, and all the other installers from around the country from this other attempt that are out there waiting, they're all going to be free members in my new network, because the other company failed them. I'm bringing them into mine, and so they can thrive and get what they did not get in that other company. So
that sounds like an outstanding idea. I'm surprised, Travis. Like I said, when we talked about doing an episode together, I had no idea that you had these plans on the books, and I'm excited to find out more. Is there any questions you wish I had asked, or any subjects we left on the table?
I think we covered it. but like I can design anywhere in the country. So, and Canada, I have a friend of mine, she's a mentor. She has been designing for, I think, 15 years, and she's the head of Permaculture Canada. That's her business. So, and there's some others up there in Canada too. So you're in Canada, you're in the United States, we got you covered.
That sounds fantastic, Travis. And I'll keep an eye on her as well, because that anybody that can grow food in the further northern environment, like you were talking about, the gentleman that was growing in the mountains, which has its own challenges, not least temperature, lack of oxygen, and sometimes lack of rainfall. So but particularly the farmers in Canada are especially talented because they have to get used. They're working in rocky soils and very short growing seasons. So high degree of error, very short seasons. So they're brilliant growers.
And one thing too, my friend Chad up in Spirit Mountain up there by Duluth, Minnesota, he has 80 acres, but he creates microclimates so he can extend his growing season. So he blocks the northern winds that come in, so it's not as cold. And his place, I have actually, if you go to my YouTube channel, you will see some videos, guided tour of Chad Johnson's property. With his name is Chad Johnson. He's got like 200 different types of food growing up there, and like off grid for the past 12 years now. And he said when he started his food forest, he had the following year, he had tens of different plants and stuff expanding, the animals and stuff that would come in and expand it. And the next year was thousands. And now it's just exponential. Every year it spreads. He said he can walk for miles and he will see his food forest has spread that far. So he's backed up against some government land up there. And so it's just, as far as you can see, is land, and his food forest has spread just so far. And then there's also Indian lands up there, old Indian land up there. So they had food forests designed up there too. So you can still see remnants of that.
And I'm sure some excellent deer hunting up there as well, because that creates deer browses, and how you're increasing the nutrition of the fruits and vegetables.
And one thing too up there, he has free range chickens and ducks. And he said in all the years he's had that, he has never lost a chicken or a duck to a predator.
Wow.
Because there's so much food and there's so much around that they don't even bother with it because they can eat something else, and it's crazy.
Thank you so much for your time, Travis. I appreciate you. Have a fantastic day, and I look forward to seeing your business launch.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate you having me. Have an amazing day.
Thank you, Travis. Bye-bye.
The Free Time Mastermind Group now offers special videos available only to Mastermind Insiders. Go to www.freetimemastermind.com, click Other, and type YouTube Insider to get free access. Also, click like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share this video. Thank you for watching the Free Time Mastermind Podcast.